We're live. We are live on the internet. Let's get rolling. Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday, June 11th, 2021. Today, it's all about WWDC and everything that came out of that here on the iMore show. Joining me, as always, is iMore contributor Karen Freeman.
Hey, Karen.
Hello.
Joining us today as a special guest is iMore writer Christine Romero-Chan.
Hey.
Christine. And as our other special guest, iMore news writer Stephen Warwick. Hey, Stephen.
Hello, hello.
We've got a packed show today, folks. It is all about dub, except for this part here at the beginning that isn't quite. So I wanted to start just off the top of the show talking about the other big release that Apple made this week. Spatial audio and lossless audio are now finally in Apple Music. I wanted to get this out of the way because we have a whole lot of dub stuff to talk about, but I did want to note it's here. It's finally happened. Has anybody listened? Has anybody taken the time to listen to some spatial audio or lossless audio? Stephen?
I've been hammering the spatial audio and what does anyone know what the difference between Dolby Atmos and spatial audio is?
So, here's the thing. This is a multifaceted release, just the spatial end of it. We're not even getting into lossless yet.
Mm-hmm.
So Apple didn't just release Dolby Atmos. First of all, Apple talks about Dolby Atmos and other Dolby formats, which I take to mean like just surround sound. Like, so if your music isn't mastered for Atmos, but it is mastered for, like 5.1 or whatever, however many channels, 7.1, then it still plays as stereo and like sort of spatial stereo. They're calling it spatialized stereo, and it's distinct from spatial audio. Spatial audio really is the Atmos stuff.
I got caught out by that. I made quite the fool of myself, where basically Apple released all these spatial audio tracks onto Apple Music, and I started listening to them. I was like, this is electric. These sound amazing. And then someone on Twitter, I posted a couple of screenshots, like the songs I was listening to, and somebody on Twitter was like, that it doesn't have the Dolby Atmos. Like you're just listening to AAC. Sure enough, I updated to iOS 14.6, and then like the songs changed again because that was like actually officially Dolby Atmos. So yeah, and then iOS 15 has this spatialized stereo setting, which turns stereo into kind of spatial, but not quite. So the spatial songs, the ones that have been recorded in Dolby Atmos, even if they're not playing like officially, they do sound better and different, which is what, because I thought I was listening to spatial audio and then I upgraded and I actually started listening to spatial audio, and so it was like kind of two jumps of, but I've been hammering the playlist stuff. They're really good. The only thing I will say, there is a big disparity across the tracks as to what sounds good and what doesn't. So like they've got the Beatles on there remastered from 2019, like Here Comes the Sun, some other stuff. They sound brilliant. There's some really, really cool orchestral tracks like Jurassic Park, the Imperial March, some hip hop, some pop and stuff. Fall Out Boy, whoever they got to spatial, they should sack that engineer, because like those tracks in particular are like noticeably terrible. So the only quirk I have so far is the songs, like there's a big disparity in kind of the audio quality, but overall I'm super impressed.
So Christine or Karen, have either of you listened to any spatial audio stuff yet?
Not the spatial audio, just the lossless with like the Beatles.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's an excellent choice. Beatles all around. One of the things I wanted to get your takes on this. One of the things that I've noticed about spatial, so I guess Stephen, really, the volume situation. Like I'm not losing. I'm sure I'm losing my hearing. No, but I'm not losing my hearing. You do have to pump up the volume a bit, right?
We have a fifth guest. Look, it's Karen's cat.
My grandcat was hiding. I'm not used to cats, and I didn't know she was in here. She was hiding underneath a pillow, and I did not know she was in the room with me.
Yeah, sorry for our audio listeners. A cat just went Karen. Joe, you are not losing your mind. That's one of the things, is not only the disparity in the quality, but the volume levels across the tracks. I don't know if it's the way that they've been kind of mastered or remastered. Like it's a funny old process, but there are a lot of guests. I'm tripping now with this. This cat's got me. This cat's got me. There's a lot of guests. What am I talking about? There are a lot of songs that sound very different. So you'll go from Coldplay is one of them. That higher power track that they have, that's noticeably quieter than other songs. And so yeah, again, has been a frustration of the listening experience is having to like regulate the volume kind of every time the song changes. It's not just you.
Have you tried using the sound check feature?
I haven't. I don't even know what it is.
Are you familiar with? Okay, so sound check is, for those that aren't familiar, sound check is a feature. It's been in iTunes for 20 years. It's been about 20 years. I don't know if it was actually there at the beginning, but the feature's been in iOS for years now, and what it does is it essentially levels out. It makes the volumes consistent. So this is a feature I found useful on, in particular, for some reason, my HomePod Minis. I have a stereo pair of HomePod Minis, and just the volumes were going up and down all around, and so I turned on sound check, and it's all fairly consistent now.
I've turned that. I've literally just found it it's in settings and music. If anyone listening is curious, I've just turned it on. The only thing I would think of is I'm a bit of an audiophile, and I would like the less processing your songs can go through, the better. So I don't know, that might fix the volume, but then it might have like an impact like on the song like in other ways and stuff. So I'll give it a listen, see how it goes. But yeah, the volumes are whack in spatial audio. Now,
one of the things that really surprised me, I guess I just didn't figure on it, is Dolby Atmos is not an AirPods exclusive.
Nope, I have Beats Studio 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Beats
but
Studio 3.
It's also not like Apple chipped headphone exclusive.
No, the what's exclusive is the automatic. So if you have the H1, you have headphones with the H1 or W1 chip. So that's like a lot of the recent Beats, kind of all the AirPods. Dolby Atmos plays automatically. If you don't have those headphones, you can still listen to it, but you have to go into your settings in iOS or whatever you're listening from, and you have to enable it manually. I don't know why they made that distinction, but that is the case.
And so you actually can listen to Atmos and lossless at the same time if you're using wired headphones.
Because I knew that I've seen some people saying like you kind of have to choose between them, but is that they must be listening?
Well, I thought you had to choose between them, but now it looks like you can get an Atmos track and lossless at the same time if you're using wired headphones. I also confused myself this week because I had, let's be real, I had iOS 15, the beta, on my device. Yes, my main device, which do as I say and not as I do. Don't install it on your main device. But also I did that. I did exactly that. And so I had iOS 15 before, it came out after DubDub's keynote and after the betas had launched. So I had it installed. And so I put on my AirPods Max, and I was listening to it a little bit before I immediately fell asleep because it was like 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. when it finally arrived for me. And it sounded great, but I have, because of iOS 15, I guess I have head tracking already, which is not supposed to be a feature until this fall. And it's like, wait a minute, what do you mean there's no head tracking to this fall? Oh, right, because I have the beta.
So what's the head tracking like then?
It's beta 1. I think the head tracking could use some work.
But is it noticed like it moves when you move your head?
Yes. Yeah, like head tracking with Dolby Atmos or spatial audio on videos. But it decides essentially, all right, so this is the main orientation, and then we're gonna just rotate around that, and then it changes if you pause. Like if you do this, so you're looking dead ahead, you play, you move your head, and then so the sound like pans around, and then you pause, and then you play again. Now the new direction you're looking, like
recalibrates itself almost.
Yeah, kind of recalibrates itself.
That's wild.
It is wild. But I'm not sure how I feel about that particular part of the experience for music. It's great for movies. It's great for surround sound movies. I guess maybe I'm really used to just, mono and stereo. at best. So maybe it's just something that takes getting used to. We'll see in 3 months when the software actually launches. 3 months.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'd say all the music basically, apart from those Fallout Boy spatial audio tracks, all the music on Apple Music sounds better. now,
Yeah,
which is
because
good.
all of it at least has the new spatial stereo stuff. If you want that turned on,
Mm.
yeah. But yeah, now let's turn our attention where our fifth guest is being evicted. Our fifth guest has been evicted. So let us turn our attention now to WWDC proper, because they did announce that spatial audio would be arriving today at WWDC, so Monday. But let's talk about the rest of the show, and let's start in order. Let's start with well, actually, first of all, overall impressions of the show. I have conflicting feelings about this year's WWDC. I like all of the stuff that we got, but there was some stuff that I really wanted that we didn't get.
Does it involve the iPad?
It does. It does involve the iPad, and I understand why we didn't get that stuff, and we'll go into it a little later when we talk more about iPadOS proper. But yeah, it does involve the iPad. It also involves MacBooks. Obviously, we didn't get any MacBooks.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Yeah, good. Hey,
Good
we
job.
were prepared. We were prepared, and
We
we
were.
were over prepared. That's all that meant. We were
Yeah.
over prepared.
Yeah, I thought it was all right on the whole. Like,
Yeah, I mean, still slick. The
it was
whole
long.
presentation.
I mean, it's different when we were covering the event as opposed to watching it. So maybe just viewing it wasn't, but like it felt it was a marathon. Like it was a real effort to keep up.
The iOS section was like a lot. It was very densely packed. It just kind of kept going, and then it went into the health stuff, and it kept going into that. And
Privacy and iCloud Plus.
Didn't they save that to iPadOS?
I don't even remember, to be quite
What
honest.
was the order? Who knows? So
It's kind of a blur. It was so long and it was so densely packed. I mean, there wasn't really any downtime where it was just, like, let's watch a little film. Like they usually.
That's the thing about the remote events where they're pre-recorded is, when you have the live show, there's space for people to applause and you have to wait for someone to come on stage and come off stage.
Right.
And there is more natural breaks. Whereas I think the pre-recorded ones, certainly last year and the events we've had in this one, are all like very relentless. So
Yeah.
We're no longer we're not taking time out to do AR Minecraft or Anki Racers.
Right. And I agree with you, Joe, that I did like everything they announced. There were some fun surprises and neat things. Like I haven't even heard people talk about things like the being able to use your iPad, your AirPods, basically like I don't want to say like a hearing aid, but that they can block out outside noise and direct directly to the person in front of you. I mean, because losing the ability to hear conversation when there's background noise is one of the first signs of hearing loss. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to mitigate that using AirPods, it's really an incredible thing for anybody. And there just were lots of little surprises like that we weren't expecting. And then we didn't get all the stuff that we were expecting, but it was an interesting event.
So speaking of things that we were at least hoping for, and frankly expecting, that we didn't get, Christine, customization, nothing. Let's
so
talk
sad. I'm so sad.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Oh no, Christine, you're a little frozen. Oh no. But yeah, I'm with you there. I was expecting more in terms of customization, and by more I mean anything at all.
Yeah.
And it just did not happen. So depressing.
Well, I guess every year can't be like iOS 14, so.
No, certainly not. But I would have thought that they would have. Now, here's the thing. I say this knowing that I am my own Lucy with the football here. but I don't think it's impossible that we will get some kind of customization oriented update during the iOS 15 cycle, even if it's just the ability to, you know, do custom icons more easily on top of existing apps. And the reason I say that is Apple is not afraid to release major features mid-cycle if, there's reason to. Like, look at the upgraded pointer and keyboard support in iPadOS 13.4 last year. It was
like
That's
April,
true.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was with the new iPad Pro, and that's when they announced the Magic Keyboard for iPad. And then, let's see, 4 years before that, we had Night Shift. iOS 9.3 is when we sort of started expecting Apple to release sort of big spring updates, and they've been doing that a lot. I mean, sometimes they've broken them out into like slightly smaller updates, like iOS, but then iOS 14.6, that's podcasts, which those are coming Tuesday, right? Podcast subscriptions.
Yeah.
That's been officially announced for Tuesday.
15th, yeah.
Yeah. And also we've got, spatial audio and lossless audio for Apple Music. That came in this update. It was, it's not a small update, even though there weren't a lot of bullet points in the release notes, but it was those are substantial upgrades for Apple experiences, and it it's good to see them. But I wouldn't be surprised if Spring Update 2022 is, I mean, if it has something, like if we get something in the next year, I will not be shocked. But then again, I also won't be shocked if they wait until iOS 16. I feel like before we dive any further, I do feel like this year, I felt like this year was a little bit of a hodgepodge. All the features they didn't all really connect to one another.
It felt like a bit random, didn't it? Almost the way they were.
Yeah, there wasn't like an overarching theme this year.
Like a board clearing. Almost.
Yeah.
Is how I see it. Like they're clearing some junk off the table, and then maybe next year, the eternal cry of Bluetooth followers. But yeah, I think next year could be bigger. I think that is a distinct possibility, but it did feel there were some related features, like all of the FaceTime stuff. The FaceTime stuff.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Huge updates to FaceTime.
Where it came from is they saw Zoom getting traction in the arena and said, wait, we need to get in on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly where it came from. But then, I mean, it does feel like there is a bit of a more social component to iOS and iPadOS, actually across the board. So we've got SharePlay. It's a whole feature with a name that services can buy into and can build with, but also things like shared with you being integrated into like 6 core apps.
Yeah,
which I'm sure that'll not be annoying.
And I'm sure a lot of that was inspired by COVID too, with people being home more and sort of their social lives being reduced to their devices.
Yeah, and would have been a lot better last year, but the pandemic's still going on for very many people.
Well, and you can't make these kinds of changes instantaneously.
No, especially something like SharePlay, if it's going to work as well as Apple says it will.
But Apple must know as well, like a lot of these, like you said, a lot of these features kind of, you don't want to call them like pandemic features, right? But like focus is very, work from home, or it's trying to stop like the bleed between like your personal and your professional and the share. There's a lot of remote features, but Apple must see some value beyond like obviously they're kind of created for like the times we live in, but obviously also these features you think will be, I think, of note and like of use to a lot of people kind of down the line and stuff. So
I mean, I think the pandemic has changed the way that we live forever. I think a lot of people are going to be working from home now on a permanent basis that never had before.
I look at these features and I also see as sort of a secondary effect in the last decade and a half has seen an explosion in like meeting people just online, and you just have this group of online friends. Like, let's see. I've met Stephen. Have we actually met in person? Were you at our gathering?
None of us has met Stephen.
No.
Yeah, no, none of us have met Stephen in person.
Yeah.
But
nobody even knows how I got here. I just thought
you just kind of
I started turning up one day and writing articles, and we
just started paying you.
Yeah,
I know. I just missed meeting Stephen because I was in his part of the world like right before he came on board. So I would have met him if I could have,
but I've met a fair few of not just the iMore staff, but the wider call ourselves mobile tech vertical staff. People from Android Central and Windows Central and the wider group that we work with. We've a bunch of us have met in person, but for the most part, we just don't. But we develop friendships and rapport outside of work too. And this sort of features like SharePlay, help those online connections, I think, become a little more solid, a little more real. So I'm interested to try it out. Christine, from what I understand, SharePlay isn't quite working yet in the betas.
Yeah, I tried that with Luke this morning, and we both thought we were dumb and couldn't find it, but apparently it's not even out. So
wonderful. So
what were you gonna watch?
He was just testing, like, just playing an album in Apple Music, or just like watching something on Apple TV, but there was no option.
Ted Lasso. Watch Ted Lasso. That's
so if you do SharePlay with somebody, do both of you have to be subscribers to that particular service?
That's a good question.
I'm not sure because we didn't get it to work. So,
but you're both Apple Music subscribers.
I am. I think Luke is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think you do have to be. The one thing I do know, Apple is giving or is telling developers, this is it's like the WWDC, like the developer section about like how to use SharePlay, and it's encouraging developers, to use SharePlay as like a good way to engage new users. So say we all SharePlayed something like Disney Plus, Kara didn't have the app, her iPhone would prompt her to download the app, and Apple kind of presents it as like a good opportunity to offer, free trials and stuff like that. So that does kind of give the impression that you do have to be, if not like a full subscriber. Like say we wanted to watch a thing on Disney Plus together, Karen would have to get the trial before we started, and that's an opportunity for the developer to kind of add a new customer and stuff, because it does seem, I don't know how many people SharePlay supports, but it does seem like a little bit of a, like, otherwise just a license to kind of not have licenses, I guess, and just, one person pays for the movie and 8 people can watch it or something like that.
Yeah, I would assume then everyone would have to have the subscription.
Yeah, I do wonder, speaking of paying for movies, I wonder, like, if you buy movies from iTunes still, if you're like the last person that does that, does everyone have to own the movie? Does everyone?
Because then you're like, that's like, how much is it? Well, it depends how long it's been out, I guess, but that's expensive. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if it was different for, say, owned content versus services.
Streamed, services.
Yeah. All right. Before we continue on, Karen, why don't you tell us about our friends at Hover?
Yes. Hey, iMore Show fans, we're going to take a quick second to talk about Hover, one of our sponsors. We know you love learning about tech, and Hover is a great tech company to talk about. Hover is a jumping off point for a ton of entrepreneurs, and they want you to start your business with a domain name. Hover has over 300 domain name extensions to choose from when building your brand online. No matter what you want to build, there's a domain name waiting for it. You'll find excellent technical support available to answer any questions you may have. Their support team doesn't upsell you. They only work hard to help you get online. With free WHOIS privacy protection, a clean user interface and user experience, and monthly sales on popular top-level domains. It's not hard to see why Hover is a popular choice for people starting all kinds of businesses. Hover offers best-in-class customer and technical support, domains and email to pair with your domain, clean and easy to navigate UX and UI, over 300 domain name extensions to choose from. Grab your desired domain name at hover.com/iMore. Get a 10% discount with our referral link on all new purchases. That's hover.com/iMore. Make a name for yourself with Hover.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Hover.
you, Hover. I've actually used Hover to secure my own domain that I will not share with anybody.
Oh, we're going to find it.
So, yeah. One of the other things that struck me this year about DubDub is how many of the features were shared across Apple's platform. Obviously, the watch is a little bit of an exception because there's not like Safari on the watch. There's a Safari view controller on the watch. You can read like news and stuff in a web view if you're desperate.
one word at a time.
At WWDC, Apple announced it's hell. But a lot of these features, SharePlay, spatial audio in FaceTime. That was another one that happened for FaceTime. Spatial audio. That stuff is coming to iPhone, iPad, Mac this year.
Yeah.
It's impressive. And then there are even like M1 exclusive features for Mac. It's a very weird year overall. But I want to talk a little bit about focus, because this is a feature I've been using since Monday, and it's a feature I've really grown to appreciate. It's something I've wanted on iOS for a while that Android has had, thanks to a lot of, at least in the earlier days, it had thanks to different launchers where they try smart, they try to use like machine learning and stuff to figure out which apps you used when at what parts of the day and put those on your main home screen and have different contexts for like work and personal life and things like that. This is basically what Apple's done with Focus. They've expanded, really what it is they've expanded Do Not Disturb into a whole system. And has anybody had a chance to play around with this yet on the beta?
I have a little bit. It's not as useful for me right now because it's not on my main device. But so far I've been liking it a lot.
Well, see, Christine, you're not crazy. I put it on my main device. I have a sort of personal profile, a relax focus, and I created one specifically for my iPad that is just for winding down and entertainment. And what it does is it gets rid of all of my other home screens, and it just puts on a home screen that is mostly entertainment related, which is that nice gigantic Apple TV app widget. I got the Hulu widget. I got apps like Netflix and YouTube. I've got my TV tracker. It's just all about my entertainment at the end of the day. And it's really impressive that it works as well as it does already. The scheduling bit is a little wonky, but I fixed it by turning the scheduling on and off. So,
have you tried any of it's like location based as well? That's a feature, is it not?
I don't go anywhere, Stephen. I don't go anywhere. This is the fatal flaw in testing that particular bit. But yeah,
a bit of a black hole, that one.
So you can, they are getting no data on that particular testing for me. But so you can schedule it for specific times, but you can also turn on what do they call it, smart scheduling, and they'll based on what you're doing and the time of day and your location, they will try to intelligently activate your
it's basically Siri suggestions, but for
your entire
notifications
phone.
Yeah,
it's for notifications and Do Not Disturb. Basically my family gets through literally every one of my Focus setups, and then it's a smattering of apps here and there that get through the other ones. I like it. It's good. It works. It doesn't seem very flashy, but it fills a need that I
that's found. Definitely like a big pandemic feature, I guess. Like I was saying about the bleed between personal and professional. I think it'd be class. So I'm gonna wait. I'm not a beta person, so I'll just wait for the public release. But I'm excited.
Public beta. Wait for the public beta.
I'm literally. I mean the full public release in iPhone 13 or whenever that is. I wouldn't even.
Oh yeah, September.
Yeah. So but I'm excited to just be able to walk to the gym, for instance, and my phone know, okay, no Twitter, no anything, but my friend's family can call or text if they need to and stuff, and not having to worry about that or manually manage it. Because I know I have Gmail on my phone, which has a do not disturb, but it only goes up to 8 hours. Otherwise, you have to go into your iOS settings and turn off notifications manually, and you forget to turn them back on, and then you miss things when you come back to work and stuff. So Focus is definitely probably one of the iOS 15 features I think I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I think it's one of those features that doesn't present very sexy, but I think it will be one of the most useful features for people going forward.
Yeah. One thing I have learned about myself just this week is I really don't use my phone for work a lot anymore. Email triage, sure. Slack message triage. Yeah, just quick looks at my calendar, but it's not like I'm doing a bunch of my work on my phone. So it's really great for having a basic home screen setup that's just a giant calendar widget, a few apps, and actually, let's look at this now. Yeah, this is it got turned off. Yeah, and I have my to-do widget is what I've got. It's very simple, very basic. I don't have any other home screens set up in that particular Focus. But yeah, it's great. I am curious I'm curious to get these on my Mac, because I have not installed the macOS beta because my MacBook is finally not compatible with the new version of macOS coming out in the fall.
Rest in peace. Time to buy a new one.
RIP. Well, yeah, I'll just go and buy a new M1 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Well, at least you didn't sell your computer and
Yep.
hope that they announced a new MacBook Pro, and then you're out of computer.
Here's just a general PSA. Never sell essential equipment based on rumors of new essential equipment. I'm just going to put this out there. That one's squarely on you. That being said, yeah, I was disappointed that rumor did not pan out.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I'm telling you, it could still just be a press release announcement anytime.
Seems like a big deal. I don't know.
We're still in the age of virtual events. They could just have another virtual event.
That could happen too. Just randomly just announce another event coming in a month or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm already tired thinking about it.
Joe, how's the notification summary? That box of all your notifications now that you get?
It's very strange. So I like it. It's not terrible. But the strange thing about it is in between. So I have 3 summaries set up. I have one for the morning. I have one for just after work, and then I have one for the later evening. And in between those times, so I wake up, I look at my first notification summary, and I see it looks good, and it looks like it's not the case where that feature isn't implemented yet, and so you're still getting just regular notifications. We've all seen beta features like this, except for you, Stephen, who you don't get on betas.
Yeah, I don't mess with betas. No.
But yeah, everyone who's been on a beta has seen features like this where I guess that's not in yet. These are, but in between each summary, you get a new section in your notification center that just says evening summary. These are notifications that are going to appear in that summary sheet later. So you almost don't want to look at them, so you can see them in the summary sheet.
Spoiler alert! Yeah.
Spoiler alert! I don't need this Discord notification right now. Get that in my summary. It feels almost like a very old school kind of thing, in a way. I don't know, sitting down to read the newspaper after work. It's just not something a lot of us do anymore. I feel like certainly not in the digital age.
And how's the weather app?
Big. That's long. The weather app is long, is how I would describe it. Which it might be a weird way to describe a weather app, but you just keep scrolling down.
Really?
Yeah.
Like how hard is it just to get like a snapshot of the day?
Like
tell me what to wear today, kind of thing.
Okay, so I go.
Well, that's where you can ask Siri for that.
You can't do that. This is true, but if we just go into the weather app, I'm not going to show the camera because I believe that NDAs stand for something, and we can talk about this stuff, but we're not allowed to show it yet. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So you open it up and you get that big old current weather, the current temperature. You get the graphic representation, so it's partly cloudy, mostly cloudy here, high and low, and then you get the sort of hourly view. A lot of this, it looks like it's broken up into widgets, basically. So you get like the hourly view of what's going to happen in the day, and then you get your 10-day forecast, air quality. You get a map with a sort of temperature overlay that you can go into, and then you've just got like these, well, really they're small widget sized, the sort of square widget sized different things like UV index, sunset, wind speed and direction, rainfall, the feels like, all of it.
So do you think this is going to kill the premium weather apps?
I think they're not going to be in great shape, but I think premium weather apps they're already heading towards niche status if they're not there already. But yeah, I think it's going to be rough for a lot of them. You got to my personal favorite weather app was Weatherline, and it got sold, although it's still operational. We don't know who bought it. We just know that they say they didn't sell any data. So, but I think delivering something like graphically unique that's still useful is good. But for apps that are just showing the weather, yeah, I think they're in for a bit of a rough time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about iPadOS. Just a little bit. I'm not going to go on about iPadOS because I'm a little sad, but I also understand why it isn't what we all wanted it to be. Because
so when you say it isn't what you wanted it to be, is there something specific? A feature that you were missing?
That's kind of the thing, isn't it? It's bigger. We were all just kind of hoping iPadOS would go bigger.
Yeah.
And it didn't. However, let's start with the good. Multitasking is a lot better. Not only because, like, I was fine with multitasking as it was. It was a little clunky to get apps that weren't in my dock, but it was basically fine before for me, especially when I was using a keyboard. But now it's so much better because App Library is a thing. App Library is a thing. I'm more excited about App Library being on iPadOS than I am about widgets being on iPadOS, and I'm very excited about widgets. I am. It's persistent.
Why are you excited about App Library? Because I don't use it at all on my iPhone.
So from a multitasking perspective, it is a much better experience, especially when you're just using your iPad as a tablet instead of like a convertible. When you're just using your iPad, when you're using an iPad and a keyboard, you always have command space. That brings up Spotlight, and you can say, search for, I don't know, like Lightroom, let's say, because I don't have Lightroom on my dock. Certainly not anymore because I could get rid of those folders because I have App Library. I don't need it anymore. So command space, you get Lightroom, and then you can click and drag apps from Spotlight into multitasking. And that's fine. But you can't just invoke Spotlight from anywhere, especially inside an app. When you're using it as a tablet. And so now all you have to do is bring up the dock, and it's always on the very right end of the dock, and you open it, and you can pick from any of your apps, and you can just drag them into multitasking.
Okay, so in other words, it just all makes multitasking more smooth, more intuitive.
Yes.
Would you say? Okay,
it's
good.
Because otherwise, you'd have to, like Joe was saying, if you were just holding it as a tablet and you're in an app, and you're like, I would like another app, you obviously have to close that app and then scroll through to find it. Whereas now you can just App Library.
Yeah, it was all very convoluted before, and now we have a persistent multitasking control. It's a toggle that is. It's the three dots. When you get this system, it'll be the three dots up the center of the screen when you're in an app, and you tap that, and then you can tap the thing in the middle, which is two apps side by side, or the thing on the end, which is, and this is something that does annoy me about this multitasking toggle. When you hit the app, or when you hit the control to the far right of the new multitasking toggle, it'll turn on slide over mode basically, but it's for your current app. So what you want to do, if you want an app to be in slide over, open that app first, then toggle slide over mode, then open your second app. That's still a little convoluted. I would like that button to mean bring in an app for slide over, like add an app to the slide over carousel. But things can be tweaked over time. Overall, I'm very happy. Also, you can bring two apps into split view from the multitasking view. You can just drag and drop like that. Finally. So happy about that.
The biggest iPad's change is arguably not an iPadOS. I guess it technically, but like universal control for macOS.
That's wild. So, Stephen, talk a bit about universal control.
I think like it was not necessarily my like personal favorite feature, but it feels like the biggest one is universal control. So you have to start with a Mac. And what it means is you use a Mac, say like you've got an iMac and a keyboard, you bring your iPad alongside, and you can then use the keyboard and mouse of your Mac to then, someone in the chat just called it the voodoo feature. It's pretty much dark magic. You use your mouse and keyboard for your iMac, and you can start controlling your iPad with it. And then you can have more than, I think it supports like 3 devices. So you could have like an iMac, a MacBook, and an iPad, control them all with the same mouse and keyboard, and you can drag and drop assets between devices. So like they showed it in the keynote where Craig, he like dragged and dropped like a file from his iPad across from his iPad like onto his iMac. It was absurd. And I think that's one of the, like, being able to have your iPad as almost like this second display, but also not a second display. It's like they've almost like merged the operating systems, like they can run kind of simultaneously and interact with each other.
So
it's wild.
So it sounds and it looks like the coolest feature, but my question is how easy is it to really use in real life?
So this is what's wild to me about this is there seems to be now, maybe there's a control panel on Mac OS that you have to check some stuff for. I don't know. You'd actually have to ask Luke. Because he's the one right now that has Mac OS. But there doesn't seem to be any setup. That's what's wild. And it just like knows the position. It just does it.
It just reads your mind and knows that that's what you want to do.
But I want to call out this comment in a positive way. This comment that we got from Steven Stetler, who's talking about universal control, letting each device be the best version of itself it can be and allow you to seamlessly move between them. This is great. This is what I like about universal control instead of, say, sidecar. I'm really thinking of this in the context of using a Mac with an iPad. Your iPad doesn't become subsumed by the Mac and doesn't become a second screen for your Mac, but they can interact so well. You can, and like you were saying, Stephen, you drag assets from draw something out in Procreate and then move it over to Photoshop on your Mac or something like that. It's completely wild. And I never would have expected it in a million years. But from a technical perspective, I think that and SharePlay are the ones duking it out in terms of just overall impressiveness to me.
Yeah.
Universal control.
Which, like I said, I think that is probably the biggest. It wasn't even a part of iPad. I mean, I guess it technically is a part of iPadOS 15, and that it needs to be able to function and interface with macOS. But it really was a macOS 15 change. And like I said, you can use a mouse and keyboard on an iPad, but you can't start on an iPad and go to a Mac. The Mac has to be the origin, like source device. But I think that for iPad is just like electric. Yeah.
But yeah, if I move my cursor from my Mac over to my iPad, it turns into that circular iPad cursor instead of just being a Mac cursor on an iPad.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see that in terms of whether there's any lag between devices or if there's any issues between, like file formats and stuff like that. It seems like there's a lot of kind of technical nitty gritty there that could potentially, become like a kind of stumbling blocks. Like if you picked up a file on your iPad and tried to move it across to Mac OS, like it wasn't in the right format, for instance. I'm sure they've kind of thought of that, but it's a really, really cool concept. I just hope that it works in practice, kind of like what the potential of the keynote kind of made it out to be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to learn, like in some kind of tell-all book years down the road, because that's what will definitely get a tell-all book is this particular dub. I wouldn't be surprised to learn at some point that like the reason we didn't get bigger updates for say iPhone or for iPadOS or things like that is because universal control and getting it right took so much of Apple's attention, because this feels like the kind of feature that would. Before we go into specific disappointments about iPadOS, we're gonna have a word from another one of our friends of the show. Karen, why don't you tell us all about Setup? And now, for live listeners, this is an ad that will be inserted later. So you get a special treat of this behind the scenes look at our recording process for later ads. So you're welcome. And now back to the show. So yeah, iPadOS and some disappointment about it. Like, I've heard a lot of very good and nuanced takes, particularly from friend of the show, Renee Ritchie. He's a very smart man. And about why iPadOS wasn't, say, bigger, didn't focus on like pro releases, or didn't unleash the power of the M1 chip like we thought it might. And I've got some thoughts. Obviously, I do. Anyone who listens to this show or has talked to me about technology knows I can just go on, but I'm going to try to keep it concise here. First of all, I am really impressed that you will be able, starting this fall, you will be able to write iPhone and iPad apps on an iPad. You will flat up be able to write and send apps to the App Store from Swift Playgrounds 4 coming this fall for iPad. That Mac version for that, by the way, not coming until 2022. So, ha. But I guess you have Xcode, which that's another thing I'd like. Full-on Xcode for iPad, Logic, Final Cut. These are things I'd like Apple to figure out how to bring to iPad. Now, one of the things that Renee brought up is that iPadOS is not architected to use memory like a Mac. And I think this is important when we're thinking about 8 and 16 gigabytes of memory on the iPad Pro. Right now, that's for keeping stuff in memory. That is for keeping things in memory and never having to reload them. I will tell you, the number of times where I've just experienced a random web page reload since I got my new iPad Pro has been maybe 2.
Yeah.
And that is not counting the times I've had to restart it because I also put the iPadOS beta on that. It's beta, folks. That's why you got
the beta life.
Beta life.
Hashtag beta life.
And I wanted more. I wanted more. I got greedy.
I guess it's hard because you got new iPad Pro, like with the M1 chip and stuff. Like, you've got to remember that iPadOS 15 has to run on every single bog standard, the base model iPad, which is the most Apple has said is the most popular iPad, the iPad Mini, the iPad Air. So, whilst it could in theory say, hey, look, we made a final cut for the M1, it doesn't really, I don't think it wants that kind of fragmentation between, it does want that more sort of unified software experience. So, when you think about iPadOS, I feel like we're all thinking about the M1 iPad Pro, and not also the iPad Mini and Air and the regular iPad, like I said.
That's true. All of those iPads are much more popular than the iPad Pro will ever be.
Yeah.
It's just the people who have, the people who use the iPad Pro really use it. And I think there are a lot of people that think they want a touchscreen Mac is the thing. And those people are
I do
wrong,
not.
and let me tell you why. No, it's not. It's it's all a matter of opinion. It's just, I don't want Apple to give up on iPadOS, and putting macOS on any iPad would be giving up on iPadOS, just straight up.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They're saying you were wrong. Like, I like using iPadOS specifically to do work, to do writing work, to surf the web, to do any of that. And putting macOS on the iPad would essentially be Apple saying you were wrong to love this.
Yeah. And it goes back to the comment before when it's like, rather than do that, Apple's going to have, an amazing iPad, an amazing Mac. Oh, and by the way, like, they merge seamlessly in this universal control feature, but they're not the same. They are different, devices, and a person could buy one or the other or both and use them for different things rather than have them kind of bleed into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you like working on an iPad Pro. I cannot stand it.
Yeah, I tried for one day and I couldn't do it.
Everything takes me 3 times as long, at least.
Up until I became editor-in-chief, I was doing most of my writing on iPad. I did a lot of my photo editing on iPad, and there are some things that were harder, but it wasn't. Some things were just different.
Photo editing, I can see the iPad Pro would be the ideal device for that, because you can get in there with your fingers or with a stylus.
I don't like photo editing on a Mac anymore.
Yeah, no, that I understand. Photo editing, definitely. Even writing, if you're just straight writing, but if you're inserting photos and all that kind of thing where you have to jump back and forth between, I can't do it. I can't work on the iPad Pro. I tried it many times. This does not work for me.
Yeah, no, and that's fair.
Maybe I just haven't figured out a proper workflow, or I don't have the right equipment.
Yeah, I played around with it for years, Karen. I fiddled with things for years, so it's not at all surprising that it was.
It's a big commitment, I think, to be like, I'm going to work on the iPad now. You probably have to invest, probably like a year of your time getting used to it.
I tried it for when I worked at a former site with a friend of mine who lives in the same city I do. We used to meet once a week. So we lived almost an hour apart geographically, but we would meet in the middle like once a week, and we would work together. And we would, once in a while, we would say, okay, it's iPad work day. And we would only bring our iPads, and we would work on iPads the whole time. And we must have done it at least a dozen times. And I never got to the point where I had a comfortable workflow where it was as fast as working on my MacBook.
Yeah. And part of that, part of what really helped me work on iPad, and what still does when I do, because I still do sometimes, is shortcuts. Like, I really heavily invested into shortcuts for getting things done. Creating new posts on iMore for creating new posts in my particular writing app of choice. I've got just buttons I can tap to do that, and it's easy. I have shortcuts to open 5 tabs at a time for 5 different kinds of stories I need to edit in a given day, like beta update posts. That's a button.
I'm just laughing because Craig in the comment says, so you were saying it is so intuitive, it took you years to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, no, and that's Craig, that's fair, but it's also, what you got to understand is that you're not you're not going to have a one-to-one experience with a Mac between a Mac and iPad. It is something you sometimes have to figure it out.
Thanks to universal control, now you don't even have to choose. There you
go. But yeah, it's not a situation where it's not the easiest situation for especially for specific types of people like us. Like, we work in multiple types of media. We work in text and photo, and in some cases video, and that's gonna be difficult to handle on a device that is constrained like the iPad. But when it comes to writing, like my AirTags, I wrote an AirTags review 2 months ago. Is it 2 months ago? Good God. And it's been a long time. It's been a long time. Time is an illusion. I've said it again and again. But I wrote that entirely on an iPad. You know, I didn't edit it, but I didn't edit it on an iPad because that's still difficult. Less difficult this fall when extensions for Safari become a thing. But you know, it's not the easiest thing. But yeah, writing, distraction-free writing especially, yeah, it's great. Photo editing, great.
Yeah, I think universal control will be really great for that because you can edit the photos on your iPad and then plop them into your article on the Mac. That's going to be amazing.
Because right now it's still sort of a convoluted system. Like if I didn't trust, because there are times when, you know, I'll be honest, our back end doesn't work as well as it should on Safari on iPad. It works fine in Safari for Mac, but not on iPad sometimes. So it's still kind of a convoluted system. I like to have a backup, so I put it in iCloud Drive. I do my edit in Pixelmator, and then I save it to iCloud Drive. And obviously, you could upload it. You know, if everything's working, you just upload it from the iCloud Drive folder on the iPad. But this way, I could do the edit on Pixelmator and then just drag it over to my Mac, so I don't even have to worry.
Yeah, it'll be a lot better than airdropping each photo or texting it to yourself, which I've resorted to sometimes when airdrop won't work. Just
airdrop,
so ridiculous.
Texting to yourself, slacking, it's all the workarounds we do.
Yeah.
So macOS Monterey, that's the name, macOS Monterey. This one of the things that I note about this one, other than universal control, is that they finally dropped compatibility with a lot of Macs that have been, I feel like, on the edge of compatibility for years, including my valiant little MacBook Pro, which that's another thing. The compatibility story from WWDC is weird because they didn't drop support for any iOS or iPadOS devices.
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, the iPhone 6S is still going strong. I know a lot of people still have them.
So this is exactly right, Karen. The 6S. This is the reason this stands out to me. So this phone came out in 2015. The 6S came out in 2015.
That is an old phone.
It is this fall when the iPhone 13 comes out this fall, it'll be a 6-year-old phone. Which means that next fall, when like iOS 16 is coming out, which the 6S will be getting software updates like through that summer, whatever iOS 15.5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is, it will be getting software updates through that summer. It'll have gotten like 7 years.
And why does 6 or 7 sound like such an ancient phone to us, but nobody thinks twice about having a 6 or 7-year-old iPad?
Well, that's the thing though, or Mac, but that's the thing. So my iMac or my MacBook Pro that is now no longer compatible with new software, that's going to be 8 years old this December. You know, it's going to leave compatibility before it turns 8. We're getting into like Mac levels of software compatibility longevity on a phone. And sure, you're not going to get all the fancy new features. By this point, you're just not. And you shouldn't expect it. And
I have a feeling the updates are not going to go so well on these older phones.
We'll have to see.
They're gonna if they're not actually bricking people's phones, they're gonna make them more sluggish, or I don't know. It's hard to imagine that going smoothly.
7 years, Apple's gonna think you should probably upgrade. The iPhone SE is right there for $399.
Yeah.
With an A13. Yeah, it's yeah.
Anybody walks into an Apple store with an iPhone 6S saying they need a new phone, they're pretty much automatically going to be directed to the iPhone SE.
But yeah, macOS Monterey is the one that really dropped a lot of compatibility this year. It was kind of a bloodbath.
I guess it's with Intel, the Intel switch as well. They're probably trying to phase out, or maybe it's a little easier to phase out some of the older Macs that you know.
Yeah. Now we should talk about Intel a little bit. Because there's some interesting news on for Intel Mac owners when it comes to macOS Monterey, and it's that you're not getting a lot of the cool new features because those.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in that. I just bought a 27-inch iPad.
those are 12 or those are M1 only features.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because they require the neural engine that's in the M1, and that doesn't exist in any Intel processor.
Although I think one of them maps, someone figured out that that's just a performance thing. It does actually work. You can like enable it kind of in the back end, like a developer view, but it's just a performance thing. But yeah, it's I think this will just sort of happen kind of each year going forward, and the gap will get ever so slightly bigger each time.
Yeah, anyone outside of Universal Control, does anybody have like any sort of standout feature from macOS this year that isn't already on the other? This is what I was saying.
Shortcuts.
So, Christine, talk to us a little about shortcuts on Mac.
So they're bringing shortcuts over, and you can create automations, and you can even import the shortcuts you've made on iOS and iPadOS.
Yeah.
But it won't be replacing Automator, apparently.
In fact, you can import your Automator workflows into shortcuts for Mac, which is how I've been hoping they would handle this for like 3 or 4 years now. I'm so happy. I'm so very happy that about this. I'm shortcuts for Mac. Automator support. Automator's not going away just yet. Let's just say just yet, because eventually, it'll go away. But apparently, some people have been working with this already. And apparently, some Automator, like some imported Automator workflows that have gone into shortcuts for Mac, and then they sync because shortcuts sync in the cloud. They sync over iCloud. They've gotten them to work over on iPhone and iPad. There's certain actions that, because there's now Mac support, are now also on iPhone and iPad, like get folder contents and things like that. It's good for everybody, and I'd love to see it. But yeah, I'm really happy about shortcuts for Mac.
The Safari updates look pretty cool. I have to actually play around with them to see, but the whole new look, obviously, but just the way that they're handling tabs and how you can save them all and put them in folders, and it just looks very cool. I'm looking forward to playing around with that.
Yeah. And then so I've played around with Safari on iPad. Let me tell you something. On iMore, looks pretty slick.
Yep, nice and yellow.
Nice big yellow nav bar. You're welcome, everybody.
Everything just sort of looks more modern.
Yeah, it does. I like this new design. I'm sure there are people that really hate it, but
they'll get used to it.
I actually love the fact that the search bar or your URL bar is on the bottom on the iPhone.
Oh yeah, that's so good. It's just tap in and it's good, and you can swipe up on the nav bar to get the like card view of all of your tabs and scroll through those. You can create a new tab by swiping, I think, right to left on your rightmost tab. You could swipe through your tabs by swiping left and right on the tab bar. It's very slick. I don't know about. I think it is a little jarring. Christine, tell me what you think about this. I think on the iPhone, it's a little jarring when you tap on the address bar, with the tab bar, and then you go to enter address, to have the bar go all the way back up to the top instead of like right above the keyboard.
Yeah,
it does feel
that's a little weird,
but it can be tweaked. I like that you can set the background on the start page now. Which
I actually haven't tried doing that yet. But
you can do that. You can do that on macOS Big Sur already in Safari, but this is new for iPad and iPhone. And like I said, extensions are coming to Safari on iPad and iPhone, like proper actual on-browser extensions, like Grammarly and 1Password. 1Password already has a version of their extension up and running. They showed that on Twitter. It's yes, this please finally. There's also a lot of, I know we're long, but there's also a lot to go through, so I'm okay going a little long here. If you guys are, but
I could do with stepping away if that's all right, but please feel free to carry on without me if that's okay.
right. All right. Thanks, Stephen, for joining us this week. It's good to have you on as always.
Yeah, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, later, Stephen.
Bye.
But yeah, there's one other thing that I really wanted to talk about before we sign off, because this is a long show, because it was a packed show, and that's privacy, iCloud, and iCloud Plus, which is not as big a deal as my intonation might make it sound, because if you already pay for iCloud, you are already going to be an iCloud Plus customer, which I pay for Apple One, so therefore iCloud Plus is me. But there are two big features that come with iCloud. Well, three really. So first of all, Kieran, are you up on iCloud Plus and what it is?
Why don't you sum it up for us?
So iCloud Plus is essentially now what the paid version of iCloud is. If you just have the regular 5 gigabytes of storage, you're just an iCloud subscriber. And if you pay for any more, or if you're part of Apple One, that's iCloud Plus. But iCloud Plus users, in addition to more storage, are now getting a couple of, three real new features. You got private relay, hide my email, I guess enhanced HomeKit secure video. I mean, HomeKit secure video has been a part of paid iCloud for a little while now, but ever since it's been a thing. But private relay and hide my email, those are new. So private relay, people have been saying, it's a VPN. Apple made a VPN. It's not a VPN. I know it is not a VPN. So what iCloud Plus does is it essentially it double encrypts the traffic coming out of Safari on your phone, so that Apple can't see it, so that they're I don't know what their actual partner is. They have a partner that they're using for the second level of encryption, so they can't see it and your ISP can't see it. Basically, your Safari browsing is completely protected, but it doesn't really affect traffic to and from your other apps on the phone or the iPad or the Mac, because it's going to be everywhere. So it really is a Safari focused, browsing focused thing. So if you use a VPN to encrypt that traffic, now is not the time to get rid of that VPN. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that Apple's doing this, making sort of a first party solution, and that it's browsing only. And then we've got hide my email, and hide my email. That is a lot of that's. It feels like it's a feature that's semi decoupled from sign in with Apple. So you're both familiar with sign in with Apple?
Yeah, I use that.
So, Karen, do you often elect to not give a developer or a site your actual email address, instead having?
Yeah, if I have the option to sign in with Apple, I always do that. I figure that the less people that have my email address, the better.
Smart. That's very smart. This is essentially that feature, but just you can use it anywhere. If someplace doesn't support sign in with Apple, which in many ways this almost feels like a regulatory response. Like maybe some regulators can say you can't force developers to put in sign in with your thing in apps. That's not fair. You can't do it. But now it doesn't matter if people use sign in with Apple or not. From this perspective, when you sign in or create an account, you can have Apple just create essentially a burner email address that automatically connects to your iCloud account, and just like with sign in with Apple, you can cut it off if you don't want to receive emails from that service or app anymore.
So it's basically like sign in with Apple, except you're not giving anybody the choice. You just do it.
Right. You just say hide my email, and it's a section in the settings app. You can go to hide my email, and I guess it works with existing accounts that you already have. I have to play around with it some more, but yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that feature.
But yeah, that's iCloud Plus for now. But they had a lot of privacy updates. Like Siri is now more on device than it's ever been, and so by consequence, it's faster, but it's also less data that you're sending off your phone. Mail, the built-in Mail app across platforms is it's getting rid of tracking pixels in emails now, which good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of privacy updates off the board. This is a big year for privacy. It was a big theme.
Yeah.
Maybe the only theme. All right. Yeah, and actually, Delva in the chat, before we go, I do want to address this. You don't pay for iCloud storage, and that's fine. But one of the more interesting things I think Apple's doing is they're going to start giving people like temporary iCloud storage when you're transferring your device, like transferring your information to a new
Oh,
device.
did they announce that at the keynote? I don't remember
It was
hearing
not
that.
at the keynote. This came out later. It came out later in the week. But
Okay.
but yeah, it's
Gosh, that's going to come in handy because I can tell you when I worked at the Apple Store, I was helping people buy new phones and transfer their stuff over. And I can't tell you how many times people did not pay for iCloud storage, would not pay for iCloud storage. And as a result, their phones hadn't been backed up in a year or whatever. So when they got a new phone, they were faced with either you do this yourself at home and do it on your computer or whatever, or you can do it now, but you're going to lose, hundreds of thousands of photos and all your, whatever.
Yeah.
And having the option to just have the iCloud storage free for, whatever, a few hours. How does that work?
Think, and do not quote me on this, but I think you get it for like 3 weeks.
Oh, see, that's going to be amazing.
Like holds your data for 3 weeks. I don't know if that's 3 weeks or when you transfer it, whichever comes first. I don't know if there's any sort of
repeatedly though, like every couple of years when you upgrade your phone.
That's a good
because that's when people want it is when they're upgrading their device.
But yeah, I don't actually know. I think the idea is like whenever you're upgrading, it'll do this unless you.
So it just uses this as the storage for like backups.
I think so. I wonder if there's some kind of I'm transferring this button. Like I wonder if there's a device transfer.
I wonder how that's going to work, because if you so let's say you back up your phone to the cloud while you have it and then you don't have it anymore, what happens to that backup that you made? If say you lose your device, you lose your iPhone 2 months later or breaks or whatever, is that stuff still in the cloud?
So you know how the process goes when you're like you have the two phones next to each other and you scan the QR code.
Yeah.
I wonder if this backup takes place during that whole process. Like it's sort of a very last minute kind of thing. And so that's not a worry. So you're setting up the new phone, and then it says, do you want to do a last backup to iCloud? You do it, and then you bring the data down into your new phone and you erase and discard or whatever, or pass down your old phone.
Right. If I'm saying let's say you do that and then, 2 months later you break your phone. So then you go to get a new one. Is that backup still there? The backup from 2 months ago? Or is that gone because you don't have the iCloud storage anymore?
I would imagine since I think it is 3 weeks, I think it would be gone. But
okay. So it's only good for the transfer.
Maybe do it again. Yeah, it's really just good for the transfer. Just like a temporary bubble.
But I can't imagine Apple would let you do it again, 2 months later or something like that. Because then what's to stop you from just doing it every 3 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it probably, I would imagine it is part of the transfer process now that I'm really thinking about it.
Yeah.
Instead of just
I'll be
backup.
Curious to see how that works. Because the other thing is those backups take forever. So unless they're speeding it up quite a bit, it's not going to work anyway, because for the most part, we didn't even let people transfer in a store because it could, if they hadn't backed up in a year, it could take hours. So we would tell people, go home, back up your phone and come back and buy a phone then.
See, that is how your store operated, because that is not how my store operates.
Yeah. I know it's different in every store, and the whole procedure changed 3 different times in the year that I worked there. So who knows? I don't even know what it is now, but
quick question for the two of you, and maybe you can just Kieran, do you have an iPhone next to you that doesn't have a beta on it? You don't have a beta.
Yes, I do.
So if you go into the iCloud backup settings, is backing up over cellular an option for an iCloud backup? Because it is now. Spoiler alert.
Are you talking about this screen?
Yeah. So yeah, there is not an option. Yeah, exactly. There is not a backup on cellular toggle there. So spoiler alert, iOS 15, you can now back up over cellular. If
Wouldn't
you
that be
have that
slower
sort of
though?
thing,
Wouldn't
depends
backing
on
up
the
over
cellular.
cellular?
If you're on 5G, not if you're on 5G.
Oh, okay. Good point.
Yeah. All right. We have gone long. We've come down to the end of our hour plus, but you know, WWDC week, big size show. Yeah, I want to first of all thanks to Stephen, who is no longer here this week. He left a little early, but I also want to say thanks to Christine for joining us this week. Always good to have you on. Big thanks to the live watchers and the commenters. You had a lot of insightful comments this week, but it's always great to read your stuff as we talk. Thank you to everyone who's going to listen later. Who's going to get our special late edition ad read. And big thanks to Jim Metzendorf, who, I mean, he's just an extraordinary editor. He, edits us every week and always gets us out on time. And he has had a lot of podcasts to edit this week, let me tell you. I also want to do a bit of self-promotion. I was on this week's episode of the Android Central podcast talking about WWDC as well. So give that a listen.
Representing Team Apple.
Exactly. Also team frustration. to be fair. So yeah. So thanks to the Android Central podcast for having me on as well. Yeah. We'll see you next time. And until then, this has been the iMore Show. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.